So I recently sailed on the brand new Scarlet Lady cruise ship by Virgin Voyages, and while it was interesting to see a new cruise line come out and try to shake things up a bit, I do have to admit a lot of things just didn't make sense, causing a wave of confusion that may have pushed away potential new loyal customers and maybe downright even angered them a little. Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jay. So I did have the extreme pleasure of sailing on the Scarlet Lady's US maiden voyage, or as they call it, mermaiden voyage. And while I enjoyed being a sailor on board, I do have to admit there were some things that I honestly didn't like. Some things, well, I hated. That's why in today's video, I'm going to tell you 10 things that I hated about the Scarlet Lady. By the way, before we begin, I do have to put the disclaimer out there. Please keep in mind that these are just opinions. They're not only opinions from myself, but from other sailors that I talked to and interviewed while I was on board the Scarlet Lady. I also do understand full well that this is a brand new ship and they are still kind of working out the kinks. And with all that in mind too, yes, I do understand that a lot of people are very loyal to certain cruise lines, but Virgin Voyages is a brand new cruise line. So if you're going to get hurt and angered by something I say about this cruise line, it's a little too early in the game. So just don't get so offended so easily. So the first thing that I hated about the Scarlet Lady was embarkation day. Upon arrival to Port Miami, things are pretty standard. They check in your bag and then they issue you your wristband, which is a replacement of the typical ID or key card that you would use for the entirety of your cruise. But the thing that's different with Virgin Voyages is that they do send all this stuff to your home address prior to your cruise. The problem with my case in particular was that I flew in from Europe the day prior. So all of my stuff was sent home and I didn't get it. Now, you know, typically with your bag tag, you just print it out and your ID you get at the cruise port. Well, like I said, it just caused confusion. So they ended up writing out like a tag for me with pen and pencil, and then they just threw it on with the rest of the items. Unfortunately, my bags never showed up to my room and I had to go all the way down to guest services to finally go and retrieve my bag. But this stuff happens on your standard cruise. Now also, while you're at the cruise port outside, they do tell you that you have to get a complimentary COVID test, which is a pretty cool concept, except for the fact that they make you go to an additional website that isn't on the Virgin Voyages app and put in an appointment time. Now the thing about the appointment time is that, let's say you choose 12:30 or 1 p.m. but your boarding time is at 3 p.m. You had hundreds of people trying to gather up to get inside of the cruise terminal for their COVID test because it was different than what was on their boarding time. However, they then told you that you had to just pay attention to your boarding time and the appointment time for your COVID test doesn't really matter. Now, aside from the confusion outside of the terminal with the boarding time and the COVID test, once inside, things were pretty smooth and cut and dry overall, except for the fact that they had you go from one waiting room after you got your COVID test to another waiting room to board the cruise, which was kind of counterproductive in my personal opinion. Now, once on board, of course, yes, the ship was beautiful. However, there was time for you to then book whatever restaurants and activities on board that you couldn't do until you got on the ship. But the problem with all of this was, whenever you go to the app, you can't really book anything because most of it has already been booked, which is kind of crazy to me because I believe my ship was at 45% occupancy. If things are already booked right out of the gate and I was one of the first people on the board at around 2 o'clock, 2:30, what's going to happen when this ship is at 100% occupancy? I do believe it's going to cause a lot of problems and anger a lot of people because they can't book the things that they want to book. So I also have to mention the muster drill. There was a muster drill or a safety drill video that we were required to watch inside of our cabin. And while it was without a doubt the most interesting, entertaining safety drill video I've ever watched in my life, it seemed kind of counterproductive. You had to watch this safety video as a requirement to sail on board the ship, confirm you watched it via telephone, and then you had to go to your muster station. The problem that I encountered was the muster station that was assigned on my door in my room was not where I was supposed to go. I ended up going from one place to another place to a third place to finally get checked in. But other than that, as far as the embarkation day, overall things were pretty smooth. It was just those tiny little problems. Number 2, I hate that I still can't figure out who the target audience is for the Scarlet Lady and Virgin Voyages as a whole. Is it for younger people? Is it for older people? Even after sailing, I still don't know. From the activities to the entertainment, it really is hard to pinpoint who this cruise line is trying to appeal to. Now, let's say the rooms, for example. They're not super pricey, but your average person in their 20s couldn't really afford it. My room, which was the cheapest room, cost about $1,400, but then at the same time, you have people that are 40 and up that may not really like box boxing on board while they're hitting the 7 seas. It just doesn't make sense. And at this point, even after sailing, I still really don't get it. So the third thing that I hated about the Scarlet Lady was the entertainment. I have been fortunate in my life to have danced and entertained for cruise lines like NCL and Carnival. I've worked for theme parks. I've traveled all over the world, working for companies like the Harlem Globetrotters. And I gotta tell you, when it comes to the entertainment overall on cruise ships, usually it's pretty dull and boring. Now, when it comes to Virgin Voyages, I will applaud you for not having the same cookie cutter, copy and paste dance shows that we see on every other ship. And the talent on board the Scarlet Lady is off the charts. However, when it comes to the shows as a whole, I wasn't too impressed. So the two main shows on board the Scarlet Lady are Untitled Dance Show Party Thing and Dueling Reality. When it comes to the dance show party thing, it was somewhat entertaining. There were lights, there was a lot of moving stages, there was audience participation, everybody got involved. However, the show itself was kind of all over the place. The dancers, as far as the choreography, was kind of like, it was weird, right? There were random ups and downs. There was no overall vibe to the show. Now, even if the show is supposed to be kind of random, I get that was the idea. However, there should still be a vibe and some kind of rhyme or reason to the show in some kind of way in order to keep people, you know, into the actual show. That's all I will say about that. Now, when it comes to Dueling Reality in particular, this is an extremely acrobatic show, and like I said, the people are extremely talented. Now, the thing about this show, I guess it was kind of like a versus, like there was a red side and a blue side. It was kind of West Side Story meets Romeo and Juliet. But here's something that I know as far as working with a ton of acrobats and circus performers that are some of the best in the world. They are good at just doing that kind of stuff. They had acrobats that were trying to sing and act, and it just didn't click very well. If you want me to be completely honest with you, when it comes to Dual Reality, amazing show at the end of the day when you look at it as a whole. However, it would have been a better show if there was just music and the overall acrobatics. Now, just keep in mind, guys, this is my opinion and somebody that unfortunately can't take the filter off as far as dissecting actual entertainment, whether it be on a cruise ship, theme park, or what have you. Now, circling back to all the amazing talent that is on board the Scarlet Lady, ranging anywhere from singers to dancers to magicians, well, they're not utilized that much, at least from my perspective. Here's the thing, whenever there is the section from nighttime to evening time on board the Scarlet Lady, there is an extreme amount of dead space, and this is something I heard from a lot of people on board. There just simply wasn't a lot to do. The magicians, I'd only see them every now and then at around 2 a.m. whenever they'd grab you from the party to sneak you into some private room to show you some magic stuff. They should use these people a lot more because they are characters and they have overall great personalities. Now, one thing also I am going to point out is why Virgin? Why in the heck is there not a comedian on board? This is an adult-only cruise. I don't see why there isn't the most zero-filtered, most controversial, adult, X-rated comedian that the world has to offer on board this particular ship. Personally, I love a good comedian. I know everybody does, and I'm sure everybody has their taste, of course, but there should definitely be a comedian on board because I do believe that will give people a little bit more variety. I will say this, and I'll probably say it once again throughout the video. There is a reason why every single cruise line has a similar formula. Because it works. For number 4, let's talk about the food. Now, I know there has been a lot of hype around Virgin Voyages food, and it is great. Now, do I think the food was a little overhyped? Just a little bit? Yeah. Now, I have nothing really truly bad to say about the food except for the fact that the food was not bad enough. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but when I go on a cruise, I'm somebody that does like to pick out or at least have my options. If I want to get some greasy pizza, there should be multiple places where I can get some greasy food and some unhealthy food, which was not at the buffet. They had sushi and a ton of variety over there, but just not the things that I look for whenever I go on a cruise. Now, they had this vegan/vegetarian spot called Razzle Dazzle, which was the healthy option on board. They had a couple little naughty options, but this kind of seemed to be the vibe of the entire ship. In my opinion, even the ice cream felt kind of healthy. Now, I get it, people are going to have their tastes and likes and dislikes, but I do believe there should be more of a range of options as far as the cruise other than just the specialty dining options, because they are always going to have a range of options because that's what people are really paying for when it comes to dining. Now, another thing is that I went to the Wake restaurant, which is supposed to be, I guess, one of the top tier restaurants on board the ship, and I paid $70 for a seafood tray, which came with lobster, crab, oysters, shrimp, you name it. But the thing about all this was that the first time in my life I had cold crab legs and cold lobster. Now, the oysters and shrimp, I do get it. I don't mind having that cold at all. But the problem was that they don't have an option for you to get the lobster and crab either hot or cold. I like my crab hot with some hot garlic butter. I mean, maybe that's just me, and this is a very nitpicky thing to talk about, but that's just something I wasn't pleased with considering I paid $70 for the entree and they didn't have an option to make it hot. Now, before I move on, I will leave off with this. I do understand full well that in other parts of the world, having your lobster tail and crab served cold is considered customary or normal. But to me, it just kind of gave off like a cheap feel, like that stuff has been sitting in the refrigerator until it was time to get served and they just threw it on a platter and handed it to me. At least from my perspective, that's just kind of how I felt. Now, when it comes to the food overall and specialty dining options, just keep in mind when it comes to the app, a lot of these places were fully booked literally on embarkation day. So I was lucky to even get in. Also, another point on the app, it does seem to, for some reason, just randomly cancel your reservations, be it from a show or even in the dining option. So just be aware with that. Again, I understand Virgin has to work out some kinks, but that's something that really bothered me as well as a lot of others on board the Scarlet Lady. So number 5, let's talk about the nightlife on board the Scarlet Lady. Now, naturally, based off of what everybody has seen as far as the promotional material and pictures and videos, you do have somewhat of a high expectation naming this ship a potential party ship. And on some nights, I'll be honest with you, it did not disappoint. I had a great time on some nights. Now, some I'll give the benefit of the doubt because we did get rained out. But one thing that really bothered me, again, was kind of like the pre-game in between day and night. There was really nothing going on to set everybody up to get ready for the night. There was a Scarlet night that was absolutely amazing. We had a lot of fun. Everybody wore red, and a lot of people thought it was like a swingers night, but again, that still kind of confuses me. But the thing that bothered me the most was that you had these beautiful nightclub that was set up for success, but unfortunately, it did not commit because of one thing. The vibe keeper, the master of music, the DJ. The DJ on board the Scarlet Lady was absolute trash, and man, myself along with many others, we just couldn't even bear to hear any of the music that was being played just because of how it was being done. So there was one girl that was absolutely amazing. She was really good. But for the most part, the other DJs that was there literally almost every night was horrible. I couldn't take it. A lot of people couldn't take it because the thing was they go from playing country music to then all of a sudden playing some rave music. Now, I know you would say that's normal. No, when you are a DJ, you are the vibe keeper. You're supposed to bring people up gently, keep them up there for a little while, let them jump around a little bit, then float them back down. That did not happen whatsoever. The music itself, as far as the selection, was just absolute garbage, and this is why not a lot of people showed up to the nightclub because they walked in there for 2 seconds and was like, this ain't for me. And that was pretty much the entire club scene on board the Scarlet Lady. I'm just saying, if you are going to sail in the US out of Miami of all places with a brand new cruise line that a lot of people perceived it to be a party ship, you better come with it. So the 6th thing that I hated on board the Scarlet Lady was the pool and outdoor activities. Now, we've all seen how notoriously small the pool is, and it's even smaller in person, trust me. Now, don't get me wrong, I think I get what Virgin was trying to do. They're trying to create somewhat of an intimate environment, causing people to kind of bunch up together for this amazing Miami style or beach style, whatever party style vibe. But the problem is, you got people that, believe it or not, Virgin, they actually want to swim and do a cannonball from time to time. Maybe be able to swim with their groups that they actually came on board the cruise with. They also had this weird Muscle Beach type gym, I guess, over on another part of the aquatic club, or aka the Lido deck, which kind of was counterproductive because while I was there on board, I never really saw anybody working out there. It was, I guess, an Instagram area, which is pretty common on board the Scarlet Lady. I think we all know that. But the gym, the actual gym, is still on that same deck as the aquatic club or the Lido deck. They also have another gym that is just one deck above that. Now, as far as the activities, they have kind of like this weird playground area where they have like a teeter-totter. Now, you guys know I have fun. I jumped on that teeter-totter and people were looking at me like I was crazy. So I couldn't see a lot of people really jumping on that thing and bouncing up and down. They also had this area called the net, which I guess you can get a good view, which was pretty cool, I guess, in concept. But laying down on it, it's extremely uncomfortable. You can't bounce on it, and it really has no use. In my opinion, it was somewhat of a waste of real estate because every single inch of a cruise ship is going to be real estate that you can use to potentially entertain or make money. It just didn't really work out because I didn't see a lot of people on it. Now, they do have a really cool basketball court, which I had the honor of playing the captain, which, of course, I lost, but I let him win, all right? You can't let the captain lose in a game of basketball. Who knows? He might take the ship in another direction, and just because he's angry. We wouldn't want that, now would we? The seventh thing that I hated about the Scarlet Lady was the fact that there was no drink package available for purchase. Now, typically, I don't purchase a drink package, but it does depend on the overall details because you should always read every detail that's on the drink package. But it made me a little curious as to what the overall plan was for Virgin Voyages, because in my mind, when I first made my initial booking, I was like, okay, either the drinks are going to be really cheap or they got you and you have no choice but to buy the expensive, overpriced, probably watered down drinks that they have available on board. Now, I will admit, when I got on board, the drinks were reasonably priced. They weren't that bad. However, they also matched up, I guess, this deal that if you buy $300 worth of drinks, for every $300, they're going to give you an additional $50. Now, if they're going to do that because the concept isn't that bad, you should start that at $100. For every $100, you get an extra $50 or $25 or something of that nature. To me, that made the most sense. Otherwise, it's kind of, again, counterproductive, and it's going to make a lot of people just kind of put off by the fact that you're trying to make people spend that amount of money on drinks, even though, yeah, let's be fair, a lot of people do anyway. For number 8, we have the island of Bimini. Now, I will say this private island was extremely beautiful. Of course, you have the Bimini Beach Club that is exclusive to Virgin Voyages sailors. And like I said, very beautiful. Not a ton of things to do if you're looking for something similar to a Coco Cay. However, it's an adult-only cruise, so you're not going to find a lot of playgrounds or anything of that nature. There's the beach, there's jet skiing, all the typical stuff you would find in a Caribbean private island. But one thing that I didn't like in particular was the fact that the food is done and over with at 5 o'clock. However, the ship stays there until midnight. So I thought that was kind of strange when they have all these little bonfires and parties that are supposed to be going on in the middle of the night, which for that reason I did not go over to the private beach club in the evening time. Another thing, which this may not apply to a lot of people, but they did run out of Moet champagne. Now, this is a little weird to me because there was this guy I was hanging out with that was apparently a multi-millionaire. And the bottles of Moet cost anywhere from $95 to around $100. This man bought about 25 bottles, which was insane to me, but he kept buying them and buying them. Until they ran out, of course. Apparently, he bought every bottle on the island, and then he bought some other champagne that I don't know the name of because personally, I'm not in that class of people. But I just thought it was a little strange. I figure if you got high-end clients and high-end customers or sailors, that you should have everything available at a beck and call. But the thing is, again, that was somewhat nitpicky, but at the same time, if you got high-end customers that want something, you should be able to get it and have a decent supply of it. That way, you avoid the situation of running out, because then you're potentially leaving money on the table because you can't give people what they want. Now, on to more first world problems. Number 9, I hated the way guest services was set up. So here's the thing with guest services. It is pretty cool that on board Virgin Voyages, they do have 2 guest or sailor services areas. The first one is on deck 7, where you walk in on embarkation day, and then the main sailor service area is going to be on deck 5. Now, here's the problem. On deck 7, it isn't the full service sailor service area. Man, I'm saying service a lot. But anywho, on this deck, they only deal with certain things like a reservation or something of that nature. However, if you lose your wristband or if you need something a little bit more serious, you then have to go all the way down to deck 5. But the problem is they don't exactly entail exactly on deck 7 what they can service you for, what they can do for you. So again, you got a lot of people confused. They're going to one place and they're sent to another place, and on board a cruise ship, again, first world problems, but you got a lot of people that are being turned away and told to go one place when they're just trying to get something simple done. Finally, for number 10, we have disembarkation. Now, this is the day you get off the ship, and unfortunately, your cruise comes to an end. And when it comes to Virgin, I see what they were trying to do, but overall, some of it was just a little confusing. So you know how you typically have your time that you're supposed to disembark the ship? Well, you do it on the Virgin Voyages app, given that it's not crashing or just kind of all over the place, which apparently was common amongst a lot of sailors on board. You pick your time, but the thing is, they don't really disclose unless you really look for what you do with your bags. I had to find out from word of mouth that whenever you want your bag taken off the ship, you have to have it outside the door by 10 p.m. Now, I didn't do that. I ended up just walking my bag off. It didn't really bother me. My bag wasn't that big, but still, there were a lot of people that were kind of confused about the entire situation. But overall, it was pretty smooth sailing from that point moving forward. By the way, I will give you a little bonus. I didn't put this in the actual video because this doesn't really apply to everybody, but this is something that I heard about the casino that put a lot of people off. So when we had our C day, apparently in the casino, they didn't have your standard tournaments that you would usually have at the slot machines and bonuses and all the other stuff that would typically drive people in. And a lot of the typical gamblers on board the ship were saying that Virgin was leaving a lot of money on the table. Now, personally, I don't gamble because I do believe the house always wins. However, Virgin, if you're listening, and if that is actually true, because I don't know from personal experience, well, you know what you gotta do. Now, to wrap all this up, I will leave off with this. I had an amazing time with Virgin Voyages. Do they have some kinks to work out? Yeah, definitely, but they're a new cruise line, so this is to be expected. There are also going to be pros and cons to everything, and if you want to hit that dislike button because I said something about, I guess, your new favorite cruise line, go ahead, but that's kind of a personal problem. Now, I will be on the Resilient Lady and the Valiant Lady, and I will probably end up circling back to the Scarlet Lady, given that she actually does continue to stay in Miami since I do live in Florida. Anywho, let me know what your thoughts about the Scarlet Lady are in the comment section below. Have you sailed on her yet? Do you have the same opinion as me, or do you want to add on to it? Let me know in the comment section. Please, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, share it, and if you haven't already, subscribe, because on Mondays I do videos similar like this, whether it be a vlog or an informational video, secret insider tips, something of that nature, and I do cruise news the rest of the week. I hope all of you guys are doing well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.